Hello. I think I might have started early, which I would apologize for if I was more sorry. But today is just the whole schedule is off. So hopefully you're still there and you're still gonna watch. It seems like the streaming. Oh, hi. Maya says hi. So I guess Maya can see me at least. Hello. Yeah. So I'm gonna start a little early if that's okay. Um, just should I get those? See, right out of the edge of the frame, there's all these boxes. See all the boxes. But let's go over here so it appears that my house is reasonably clean. Okay. I'm sorry I probably ruined the nice greeting thing that you were going to do with one another. But that's hi, hello. Oh God, I've had such a stressful 2 days working on this video. Um, I know, yeah. It's just it's all we uh, our videos about US politics always like do very well according to the algorithm or like whatever metrics you're supposed to use to decide what kind of content to make more of. Um, but I find them so difficult to make, and also I am just like a puddle of nervous sweat. Um, both before and after uploading them. And also, I am like not convinced that they do much. That's what I was really struggling this week because I'm not convinced that I don't know the extent to which they are productive or counterproductive in both in terms of like talking about trying to share what I think is the right way to organize people into a social order, but also in like I just don't know. I feel deeply conflicted about the whole thing. Like I don't feel conflicted about my personal vote at all or my personal political perspectives. I just feel conflicted about how to talk about that stuff in public in a way that people will respond to and that won't just like put us all deeper into our own siloed echo chambers. Um, so yeah, it's a big worry for me. And I don't know. Because like for instance, I think we did not help in 2016. I think we probably yeah, I don't well, we certainly didn't help. And that is something that plays heavy on my mind. Yeah, I don't know. Anyway, so that's just what's been going on in my mind, but it made Alex feel better about their vote, which is good. I do think that Joe Biden will be a much better, or would be, in the event that he is elected, a much better president than Donald Trump. Um, and I think that pretty strongly. I believe that pretty strongly. I think Donald Trump has not been an effective president and has um, used a lot of the already divisive discourse that we have in the U.S. to make things more polarized, which has been bad. But at the same time, like yeah, we need to be able to talk to each other, and I don't want to further the like siloing of individuals or push people out of our yeah, it's just complicated. So I never know how I dealt with it. Todd says, "Is this live?" It is very live, Todd. I just saw your comment. Um, will there be a stream next week? Maybe if it can be uploaded like this early. I think my video next week is going to be about. I don't know. It might be about COVID, but it won't be about the election because I think at that point it's all baked in. Um, yeah. Okay. So uh, I am. Yeah. It's hard not to be just a little worried. So I'm going to read a little bit from the Anthropocene Reviewed book. I'm going to read a new essay. I can't remember if I've read this one before, but whatever. Y'all won't remember either. I'm going to read two that are sort of about politics in a roundabout way. Um, one that's about the Nathan's famous hot dog eating contest. That still needs to be expanded now that I know more about the Nathan's famous hot dog eating contest. uh, but yeah. Todd says, I find it interesting that people who are really into military history tend to lean right, while people who study history as a whole are more left leaning. Yeah, I mean, I think that's probably a fair assessment. I think some of that is because uh, I think there's a lot of reasons for that. I think but I think both military history and history as a whole are a little bit. I don't know how to describe it, but they're a little bit like separated from other forms of reality. Like if you only think about like the classic example of this is the Melian dialogue, where these purportedly democratic and enlightened Athenians attack the island of Melos, and the Melians say, "You can't do this. You're the good guys. You're nice. You're friendly." And the Athenians respond, "The powerful do what they want, and the weak suffer what they must." And when that is like your fundamental way of thinking about human social orders, which for a long time it was really like the main way, then like having power and being able to enforce that power through different forms of violence is extremely important, because if you're powerful, you can do what you want. And if you're weak, you have to suffer whatever the powerful want you to suffer. I think that is ultimately the wrong way to think about both violence and social orders more generally. I think that uh, I think it is sort of like a mercantilist mistake to imagine power as a ball that never changes size or shape. I think that and that like you have to like try to claw away from other people. I think that social orders work best when power is distributed among more people. And I think that's actually been kind of like the lesson of the last 200 years of history to me, both military history and not. But that's me. And I obviously come at this from a particular perspective, and it's easy enough for me to say all of that when, I live in a powerful country that has exerted its power over lots of other people. So, yeah, okay. I'm gonna go to I'm going to go now to reading. I won't see your um, I won't see your comments probably while I'm reading, but I will see your comments after I finish reading. I guess I should talk for 3 more minutes since the live stream wasn't supposed to start until 1:40. But I just realized that I was going to have to leave earlier than I thought I was because I got to go pick up my kids. So, yeah. But somebody said that Knit Fen says, I like today's video as a story, but there's a danger in conflating nice people with good people. Definitely. Definitely. Also, you don't know if a person is nice or good from spending 2 hours with them. You don't even really know if a person is nice or good from spending like 2 years with them. The argument I was trying to make is that I think empathy-driven approaches to leadership are more effective than power-driven approaches to leadership. And I think that Biden has a more empathy-driven approach to leadership than power-driven. Not as empathy-driven as like some people, but that's what I think. Yeah, but that is a very good point. And in general, like, I mean, I worried about that. I tried to mention that through the Gilligan's Island story. Like, I tried to hint at the fact that, like, obviously you can't make like people act differently in those little moments than they do in their like larger lives. Yeah. So anyway, I'm gonna read. So yeah. So this first one is about the Nathan's famous hot dog eating contest, but it's really about the sort of carnival barking political tradition in the United States, which goes back a very long way. And even the conflation of the flim flam artist this is a very American thing, how we like lift up flim flam artists like P.T. Barnum, even though they do horrible things and are, really destructive forces in their personal lives and in their larger communities, and we still celebrate them. It's a weird thing, and I myself am like drawn to it. Like I get how we celebrate these things. Like I enjoyed The Greatest Showman, but there is a real risk with this excitement we all feel around carnival barkiness, and so I tried to write about that through the lens of the Nathan's Famous Hot Dog Eating Contest. Since I wrote this, I've actually read two different books about Nathan and Ida Handwerker, the founders of Nathan's Famous. I don't know how much of that is going to get into this review, because I really want to. It is interesting to me that this hot dog restaurant was founded by, European immigrants to the United States who ingested these ideas about America and like the essential Americanness of the con job, that I think is interesting, but like I also don't think is really what this is about. So that's why I think I'm gonna maybe keep it as close to this as I can. So this is a review of the Nathan's Famous Hot Dog Eating Contest, which happens it happened this year. Even this year, they don't stop it for anything. At the corner of Surf and Stillwell Avenues in Brooklyn's Coney Island, there is a hot dog restaurant called Nathan's Famous, which started out in 1916 under the ownership of Polish immigrants Ida and Nathan Handwerker. The hot dogs were made from Ida's recipe, and if they tasted like a contemporary Nathan's Famous hot dog, they were fine. A Nathan's Famous hot dog is not the best food you will ever eat, or even the best hot dog you will ever eat, but there is something special about the experience of eating one. The brackish smell of the Atlantic Ocean in your nose, the fading din of the once great Coney Island in your ears. And the hot dogs do have a pedigree. They've been eaten by King George VI and FDR. Stalin supposedly ate one at the Yalta Conference in 1945. I feel like I need a little something there, but I don't know what it is. Coney Island used to be the huckster capital of the world, where fast-talking barkers wearing straw hats would sell you on this carnival attraction or that one. Now, like all places that survive on nostalgia, it is mostly a memory of itself. The beaches are still packed in summertime, there is still a line at Nathan's Famous, and you can still ride the carousel. But they're not really selling fun anymore. They're selling reminiscence. Except one day a year, Coney Island becomes its old self, for better and for worse. Every year, on the U.S.'s Independence Day of July 4th, tens of thousands of people flood the streets to witness a spectacular exercise in metaphorical resonance known as the Nathan's Famous Hot Dog Eating Contest. Like, the most widely observed annual celebrations of American independence are, one, fireworks displays, which are essentially imitation battles, complete with rockets and bombs, and two, a contest in which people from around the world attempt to discover how many hot dogs and buns can be ingested by a human within 10 minutes. To quote the legendary Yakov Smirnoff, "What a country." Like the nation it aims to celebrate, the hot dog eating contest has always been a strange amalgamation of history and imagination. The contest's originator was probably a guy named Mortimer Matz, who has been described as part P.T. Barnum, part political scalawag. Matz made much of his money as a PR rep for politicians in crisis, a resource never in short supply in New York, but he also did public relations for Nathan's Famous. He claimed that the hot dog eating contest could trace its history back to July 4th, 1916, when 4 immigrants staged a hot dog eating contest to determine which of them loved America the most. But in reality, the contest started in the summer of 1967, when several people were given an hour to eat as many hot dogs and buns as they could. A 32-year-old truck driver named Walter Paul won the initial contest with a purported 127 hot dogs and buns in a single hour, although bear in mind that number was fed to the press by Mortimer Matz. The event didn't really become annual until the late 1970s. Most years, the winner would eat 10 or 11 hot dogs in 10 minutes. Despite the best efforts of Mortimer Matz, the hot dog eating contest was a fairly quiet affair until 1991, when a young man named George Shea became competitive eating's professional hype man. Shea was an English major who loved Flannery O'Connor and William Faulkner and wanted to become a novelist, but instead, he is the last great American carnival barker. He wears a straw hat and has become known for his annual introductions of the contest's competitors. In fact, Shea's annual pre-show performance often lasts longer than the hot dog eating contest itself and is far more entertaining. He always starts out with reasonably normal introductions, like, in his rookie year, he is already ranked number 24 in the world, Shea began one year. From Nigeria, now residing in Moro, Georgia, he's eaten 34 ears of sweet corn 6 feet 9 inches tall. Let's hear it for Gideon O.G. But as we meet eater after eater, the introductions become progressively more surreal. Introducing 72-year-old Rich Lefevre, Shea said, "When we are young, we drink our coffee with milk and sugar. And as we age, we drink it with milk only. Then we drink it black. Then we drink it decaf. Then we die." Our next eater is at decaf. They get weirder. Of another eater, we are told, "He stands before us like Hercules himself, albeit a large bald Hercules at an eating contest." Introducing longtime competitive eater Crazy Legs Conti, who is a professional window washer and the French-cut green bean eating champion of the world, Shea says, "He was first seen standing at the edge of the shore between the ancient marks of the high and low tide, a place that is neither land nor sea. But as the blue light of morning filtered through the darkness, it revealed the man who has been to the beyond and witnessed the secrets of life and death. He was buried alive under 60 cubic feet of popcorn, and he ate his way out to survival." If you don't regularly watch ESPN, it is maybe difficult to understand just how odd this is compared to their daily fare, which is almost entirely comprised of either athletic events or former athletes pontificating about current ones. ESPN is not in the business of visiting the place that is neither land nor sea. But ESPN is a sports network, and I guess that competitive eating is a sport. Like any sport, this one is about seeing what a human body can accomplish, and like any sport, it has a variety of rules. You have to eat the hot dog and the bun for it to count, and you're immediately disqualified if during the competition you experience a so-called reversal of fortune, the sports euphemism for vomiting. The competition itself is, of course, gruesome. These days, the winner usually consumes over 70 hot dogs and buns in 10 minutes. One can feel something like joyful wonder at the magnificence of a Megan Rapinoe cross or the elegance of a LeBron James fadeaway, but it's hard to construct the Nathan's Famous hot dog eating contest as beautiful. When a soccer ball is at Lionel Messi's feet, you don't want to look away. When watching competitive hot dog eating, you can't bring yourself to look away. The hot dog eating contest is a monument to overindulgence, the Anthropocenic belief that more is always better. But I think it's also about something else. The world's best competitive eater, the American Joey Chestnut, has said of Shea's introductions, "He convinces the audience these guys are athletes. He does such a good job, he convinces me I'm an athlete." The carnival barker is an obvious flim-flam artist. We know that Shea is kidding when he refers to Chestnut as America itself and claims that the first words Chestnut's mother ever told him were, "You are of my flesh, but you are not mine own. Fate is your father, and you belong to the people, for you shall lead the army of the free." We know that's a joke, and yet people scream along. They chant, "Joey, Joey, Joey." And as the announcer continues to rile the crowd, they begin to chant, "USA, USA." The energy in the crowd changes. We know that Shea is kidding, and yet his words have power. Beginning in 2001, a Japanese man named Takeru Kobayashi won the hot dog eating contest for 6 consecutive years. Kobayashi totally revolutionized the approach to the competition. Before him, no one had ever eaten more than 25 hot dogs in 12 minutes. Kobayashi ate 50 in 2001, more than double what the third place eater that year managed. His strategies, including breaking each hot dog in half and dipping the bun in warm water, are now ubiquitous at the contest. Kobayashi was long beloved as the greatest eater of all time, although he now no longer participates in the contest because he refuses to sign an exclusive contract with Shea's company. But he did participate in 2007, and when the Japanese Kobayashi was beaten by the American Chestnut, Shea shouted into the microphone, "We have our confidence back. The dark days of the past 6 years are behind us." And that seemed to give the crowd permission to fall into bigotry. You can hear people shout at Kobayashi as he walks over to congratulate Chestnut. They tell him to go home. They call him kamikaze and Shanghai boy. Recalling this in a documentary over a decade later, Kobayashi wept as he said, "They used to cheer for me." When you have the microphone, what you say matters, even when you're just kidding. Maybe especially when you're just kidding. It's so easy to take refuge in the just of just kidding. It's just a joke. We're just doing it for the memes. But the preposterous and absurd can still shape our understanding of ourselves and each other. And ridiculous cruelty is still cruel. I love humans. We really would eat our way out of 60 cubic feet of popcorn to survive. And I'm grateful to anyone who helps us to see the grotesque absurdity of our situation. But the carnival barkers of the world must know their power, and they must be careful which preposterous stories they tell us, for we will believe them. I give the Nathan's Famous Hot Dog Eating Contest 2.5 stars. Maybe 2 stars. I don't know. I think, it's good. Seems to me like more of a 2-star enterprise, to be totally honest with you. Like, I don't think it's the best use of hot dogs. But yeah, I mean, the thing about being a person is that when you encounter information that is preposterous and over the top and absurd and outrageous, it still shapes your understanding of the world, and it still changes the nature of the water in which you're swimming. And I feel like that's something that on the internet, we kind of know in the abstract, but we continue to like swim through this ocean of memes, and we feel like it's not affecting us that much. And so I wanted to try to write about that. Yeah. Yeah. So I also like, yeah, I mean, the other thing that I don't know. I like the way it ends. I think that the only thing to do is maybe to build it up a little more in the first part so that the ending hits a little harder. But I don't know. I think it works okay. The other one I want to read is about the world's largest ball of paint, which is also about politics, but it's more about like the politics of art. And it's about the world's largest ball of paint, which is here in Indiana. But it's also about like how I think good art gets made. I made a vlog. This is kind of like slightly adapted from a Vlogbrothers video. All right, here it is. The world's largest ball of paint. I don't labor under the delusion that the United States is an exemplary or even particularly successful nation, but we do have a lot of the world's largest balls. The world's largest ball of barbed wire is in the US, as is the world's largest ball of popcorn, and the world's largest ball of stickers, and the world's largest ball of rubber bands, and so on. The world's largest ball of stamps is in Omaha, Nebraska. It was collected by the residents of the orphanage known as Boys Town. I visited the Ball of Stamps 20 years ago on a road trip with my girlfriend, in which we crisscrossed the country seeking out roadside attractions. We visited Nebraska's Carhenge, an exact replica of Stonehenge built out of junked cars, and South Dakota's Corn Palace, a massive structure with a facade made entirely of corn kernels. We also visited several of the world's largest balls, from the world's largest ball of twine rolled by one person in Darwin, Minnesota, to the world's largest ball of twine rolled by a community in Cawker City, Iowa. And then there is a footnote. Perhaps it says all you need to know about America, that these are not the only competitors for the title's world's most impressive ball of twine. There's also the world's largest ball of nylon twine, currently housed in Branson, Missouri, and the world's heaviest ball of twine, which is in Wisconsin. It's true, by the way. There's an Emily Dickinson poem that ends, and then a plank in reason broke, and I dropped down and hit a world at every plunge and finished knowing then. Several years ago, a plank in reason broke within me, and I dropped down, and I didn't know what to do with myself. I thought back, for some reason, to the road trips I'd taken in college and decided to try a geographical cure. So I drove 2 hours from my hometown in Indianapolis to see the world's largest ball of paint, which ended up kind of saving my life, at least for the time being. America loves a roadside attraction, so much that we have roadside attractions about roadside attractions. The tiny town of Lucas, Kansas, population 400-ish, has become a haven for artists in recent years, one of whom, Erica Nelson, recreates America's world's largest things in miniature. She calls her museum the world's largest collection of the world's smallest versions of the world's largest things. I'm fascinated by roadside attractions because they are one place where we see the work of big systems intersect with the work of tiny individuals. The reason there are so many roadside attractions in the US is that there are so many roads. Our transportation system is built to move lots of people across vast acres of land in cars. It's telling that in the US, the world's largest balls did not really become a thing until after our massive interstate highway system was built beginning in the 1950s. Once you're on an interstate, it's easy to stay on it until you need gas or food. To tempt you away from the cruise-controlled straightforwardness of the American highway requires something extraordinary, something unprecedented, the world's largest. And so it's the system that makes the roadside attraction necessary. Footnote again. I don't know about this second footnote. I often overlook the absolute centrality of systems to contemporary life. Like the other day, I got a tetanus shot, an extremely simple medical procedure that nonetheless required several systems to work in perfect concord with one another. I needed an electrical grid to keep the tetanus shot refrigerated, and a transportation system to ship the tetanus shot to the clinic, and a manufacturing system to create not just the tetanus shot, but also the cotton swab and the Band-Aid that were used after the injection. And I also relied upon a sewage treatment system to allow for sanitary hand washing, and an educational system that trains and licenses healthcare workers, and so on. Building these systems is always difficult, and it's extremely difficult in impoverished communities. Many philanthropic efforts try to avoid systems altogether by, say, parachuting in with some iPads preloaded with educational apps. But without strong systems, it's hard to really see sustained change, whether we're talking about tetanus shots or roadside attraction tourism. I don't know. Do we need that, or is it just a little bit self-indulgent? I think it's a little bit self-indulgent. And so it is the systems that make the roadside attraction necessary. I'm going to delete the footnote. And then later you guys will tell me like, oh, the footnote was great, and I'll have to like rewrite it from listening to myself say it, but I'm going to delete it because I don't like it. And so it is the systems that make the roadside attraction necessary, but it is the individuals who decide what to make and why. Consider, for example, Joel Wall, creator of Megatron, the world's largest ball of rubber bands. When he was first building the ball, Wall wrote on his MySpace, first, have a definite, clear, practical idea, a goal, an objective. Second, have the necessary means to achieve your end. Third, adjust all means to that end. Aristotle. Now, there is an important footnote that I am keeping. Aristotle didn't actually write this, but the ideas are, I guess, distilled from ethics. For Wall, the definite and clear and practical idea was to make the world's largest ball of rubber bands, which would eventually come to weigh over 9,000 pounds. I'm not sure why I find it beautiful to devote oneself obsessively to the creation of something that doesn't matter, but I do. The world's largest ball of paint is the closest world's largest ball to me. It is located in the tiny town of Alexandria, Indiana. Back in 1977, this guy, Mike Carmichael, painted a baseball with his 3-year-old son, and then they kept painting it. Carmichael told Roadside America, my intention was to paint maybe 1,000 coats on it and then maybe cut it in half and see what it looked like, but then it got to the size where it looked kind of neat, and my family said, keep painting it. Carmichael also invited friends and family over to paint the ball, and eventually strangers started showing up, and Mike would have them paint it too. Now, 40 years later, there are more than 26,000 layers of paint on this baseball. It weighs 2.5 tons. It has its own little house, and every year, more than 1,000 strangers show up to add layers of paint to it. The whole thing is free to visit, by the way. Mike even provides the paint. He and his son both still add layers, but most of the painting is done by visitors. When I was younger, I usually imagined art as a story of individual geniuses like Shakespeare or Leonardo da Vinci or whomever used their innate brilliance to expand the human landscape, and by studying the lives and works of those individuals, I could know all there is to know about how great art gets made. Now, sometimes I would read stuff that acknowledged circumstances played a role in the emergence of great art, like, for instance, that for Mark Twain to become Mark Twain, he had to grow up on the river that separated 20th century America during the war that separated 19th century America. But mostly, I was taught and believed that the important work was done not by the Times or via massive collaboration, but by heroic and brilliant individuals. Now, I still believe in genius. From Shakespeare to Jane Austen to Toni Morrison, some artists are just better. But I don't think genius is a simple trait. I think it's more of a continuum, like having empathy. And also, I think the worship of individual genius in art and elsewhere is ultimately misguided. Like, Thomas Edison didn't invent the light bulb, it was being invented all around him by lots of people, and he innovated with them. Isaac Newton didn't discover gravity, he expanded our awareness of it in concert with many others at a time when new connections between mathematics and the natural world were emerging in many different places. I've often wished, especially when I was younger, that my work was better, that it rose to the level of genius, that I could write well enough to make something worth remembering. But I think that way of imagining art might make individuals too important. Maybe in the end, art and life are more like the world's largest ball of paint. You carefully choose your colors, and then you add your layer as best you can. And then it gets painted over. The ball gets painted again and again until there is no visible remnant of your layer of paint. And eventually, maybe nobody knows about it except for you. But that doesn't mean your layer of paint is irrelevant or a failure. You have permanently, if slightly, changed the larger sphere. You've made it more beautiful and more interesting. The world's largest ball of paint looks nothing like the baseball it used to be, and you're part of the reason why. In the end, that's what art is for me. You paint the ball, which changes the way someone else thinks about painting the ball, and so on, until some guy overwhelmed with grief and dread drives out to Alexandria, Indiana, to see what beautiful foolishness thousands of people have made together, and that guy feels a hope that cannot be explained or shared except by painting. And so that guy adds a layer of his own to the ball, one that won't last, but still matters. Art is not only a genius going forth, as James Joyce put it, to forge in the smithy of my soul the uncreated conscience of my race. Art is also picking a light blue for your layer of the world's largest ball of paint, knowing that it will be painted over and painting anyway. I give the world's largest ball of paint 4 stars. Yeah, there's a little Hank Green reference in there. He put a reference to my work in his book, so seemed fair. Okay, I think that I mean, I think that worked okay. There's no transitions, but I mean, maybe transitions are overrated anyway. I mean, sometimes I feel like uh, um, so a lot of the work of in an essay, I think in something like this, where it's roaming around in time and space anyway, a lot of the work can be done with space breaks. So I'm not like I won't be totally sure till I see it laid out, but I think I'm always amazed by how much work can be done by like a space break and a little asterisk. Like people, you see the little asterisk, and then like your mind completely resets, and you're like, now I'm in a new world. Great, let's go to Cawker City, Kansas. um, So I think that might work. Uh, but yeah, I like that. I'm a big believer in the space break. This is something I learned from, I guess, probably first from Kurt Vonnegut, who specialized in adding lots of white space to his books. Um, and I always enjoyed and appreciated it. Like, there's part of me that wants to see like as many words on a page as can fit, and there are moments when it feels like that reflects the way that I feel about life, and there are moments when I like want to take breaths and spaces and something. Um, okay. Uh, is the book going to be formatted like a novel? I don't know, and I don't know how it's going to be formatted at all, unfortunately. Um, I mean, that's something that still has that Julie and I have to figure out. My editor, because like the way the podcast is organized is there are these couplets most of the time anyway. Like I think the Nathan's Famous Hot Dog Eating Contest is like paired with chemotherapy, and that like worked as a couplet for me for reasons that are now obscure to me, but like probably had to do with this, the idea of like ingesting. Um, but I don't know if that's going to be the case in the book. Like the way I have the book laid out now is sort of like thematically, like both of those essays come in what is that? It's come in a section called Only in America, which also includes the review of CNN, which is a very American institution in all the worst ways. And so that section is 3 essays right now. I I don't know if the problem with it is that like it's hard to do that and not feel like you're like banging on the same note on the piano several times rather than like taking people on a crescendo or whatever. I don't know how to play the piano. So but yeah, I don't know. Emma asks if air conditioning. I'm going to answer questions for like the next 10 minutes and then I have to go pick up my kids. Emma asked if air conditioning is in the book. Yeah, it's a great question, Emma. Let me double check. I think it is. I like that essay. I think. Yeah, it is. It is in the book. As of now. It could get kicked. Um, is Civil Twilight. I have never written a review of Civil Twilight, but it's an interesting idea. I'm going to make a note of that because I am interested. So the problem, I'll tell you the problem with Civil Twilight from an essay writing perspective, and maybe it can just be short. Um, Wait, hold on. I have to find out if I won my IndyCar Fantasy League. Oh my god. Oh my god. I didn't just lose my IndyCar Fantasy League. I lost dramatically. Okay, Civil Twilight. All right. It's a really, really brutal loss of the IndyCar Fantasy League. I mean, let's not talk about it. I should have probably paid attention to IndyCar at some point in the last 9 months. Yeah, so the thing about Civil Twilight is that like I remember struggling to like for there to be enough information about Civil Twilight for me to write that fairly short video, which I think is like 650 words. So I don't know if I can find 1,000 new words to write about Civil Twilight, but I also don't know that it's necessary to make them all long. Caitlin just got a notification for the AFC Wimbledon game today. I really hope we can get something out of that game, but who knows? Somebody asks, are we going to get any more of the junket? There is no more of the junket. Y'all have all of it. I read the whole freaking thing. I have to write more. So I might try to write more. I might try to write more. But I don't know. Somebody asked, what is Civil Twilight? You can YouTube search it. I made a video about it. It's this real like idea that has its roots in the Middle Ages about when darkness is. I guess the thing that interests me about it, and maybe that I could end up writing an essay about, is like in between spaces. Like I love that George Shea introduction about the place that is neither land nor sea. I named kid in one of my books after a word meaning that which the sea breaks against, stuff like that. Um, yeah. So I love a good in between space. I remember when I love liminality. Like I like they gave us the opportunity to have a different place of our logo on the AFC Wimbledon uniform, and I was like, no, 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 no. I want to keep being in that liminal space between back of leg and buttock. But yeah, I remember when Sarah and I first started dating, she was curating a show that was about like outside and inside in contemporary Asian art and how where the line is between outside and inside that I was completely fascinated with. Um, Jessica talks about liking that video about driving in the snow, and yeah, so that's another one that I'm thinking about expanding it into the book is one about Wintry Mix. But Wintry Mix, like Civil Twilight, is not that inherently interesting. Like I don't know, or maybe I haven't quite found a way into it yet. Like I'm almost I feel like I am almost there, but not quite. Somebody asks how the signing is going. It's going okay. I mean, I have a lot of signing left. So like each of those boxes contains between 2,800 and 4,000 copies sheets to be signed, and there are a lot of boxes, and then there are also boxes that are not on the screen that are like underneath this over here. It's like not good. Um, but on the other hand, like you can see here, I'll show you. I think I can show you. So you can see, like, if you look over there, that's all signed sheets, and then over there, see those boxes? All those boxes are already like boxed up signed sheets. So I'm making progress. I'm getting, but also like there's no hurry. I mean, the real, like, this is the first time in my life when I've had such a long lead time, or at least like since 2004, such a long lead time between announcing a book and having it actually come out. So it's really, really nice. Somebody asked if those are new Looking for Alaska covers. Oh no, I think so. This is the old, like, what is it? British edition. It's just got a heart in the ocean. You don't pick your covers. Yeah, you don't pick your covers. You sure don't. Now I pick my covers a little more. Robocall Rob Call has that cover. Oh, I hope you like it. I hope you like it. Yeah, Looking for Alaska was always a hard book to cover. I think like partly because I didn't have like, they had to try to like sell it on something other than like my name. And also it has a freaking place name in the title, but it isn't about the place, which makes it hell on earth to try to make a cover for. So, yeah. Is there going to be a live stream next week? I don't know. I think it depends on like how I'm doing, and also like how finished, like when I finish my video. None of which I know the answer to yet. So there may not be, and I apologize if there isn't, but I mean, it's going to be a little bit of a stressful week around here, as I imagine it will be for a lot of people. And yeah, I mean, not much, I mean, the great thing um, about an election is that you have infinitely more than no say, but you don't get to decide, because you're not deciding on your own. You're deciding in collaboration with over 100 million people. So, yep. Advice for someone who needs a nudge to go to the polls. There's a lot at stake, in the next 4 years in American history. I think, probably the biggest, it's hard to say what's the biggest thing at stake, but I think that how we respond to COVID in the next year is going to have a huge impact on the kind of country that we end up sharing. And it's also, I believe that there are hundreds of thousands of human lives on the line. So Please vote if you can. Um, yeah, I mean, I think COVID is the biggest. For me, it's the biggest issue. Uh, because the United States' response to it has been so poor, and so much of our public health infrastructure has been gutted by the Trump administration. I think that that's had a huge impact on our response to COVID, and I think that we are obviously going into a very, very difficult time. It appears that there may be some, potentially a lot, but at least some degree of seasonality to the virus, which is the case for a lot of viruses, and potentially a lot. And if there is a lot, then we need to be able to respond in a. I think we need to be able to respond to it in a more organized national way. So that's the main thing. I mean, there's a lot that's driving my vote because I think Trump has been a really ineffective president, but that's the number one thing for me. Um, as far as like how to vote, I know that it can be stressful, and like I remember, especially when I was younger, that I found it really stressful, and I just like I would think about all the little things between that stood between me and voting, and get kind of overwhelmed by them. And I think that's part of the reason why some years I didn't vote. So I really recommend two things. Like, one, going to vote.org, so you can just make sure you're registered, make sure you know where your polling place is, make sure you know when it opens, what the rules are, the basic stuff. And then once you're there, it's easy. Like, it really is. There's a reason that 150 million or 30 million people are going to do it, which is that it's not that hard. And then the second thing I really recommend is getting a friend or someone you care about who also is going to vote, and figuring out a way to hold each other accountable and to help each other through the process. It was interesting to read like comments about this on YouTube. I mean, there's always a level of these sort of like intentional obfuscation comments that are sort of trolling, that don't necessarily have any kind of particular. They don't necessarily have like one political take or the other. The main thing that they're trying to do is to like discourage voting and to make it feel like all the candidates are the same, and it's just the whole thing is gross and corrupt and sick and dead at the root or whatever. And that's always interesting. That's always interesting to see, because I think that's so mistaken. And I think like the more we act as if that were true, the more true it will become. But I think that I've also seen a bunch of comments that are from people who live in other countries that are like, why do you need to make a plan to vote? Why is everyone saying make a plan to vote? And it's because in the US, like, we don't have one election system. This is what makes the US election system, like, the good part about this is it makes the US election system essentially uh like it it's unhackable, in the sense that we don't have one election on November 3rd. We have 5 or 6 thousand elections that are controlled by 5 or 6 thousand different election commissions, and that each state has its own rules. And so we have a very distributed system of elections in the United States that has a lot of bad parts to it in the present, and in the past it had extremely. In the past, that way of voting was used. I mean, it's still used to disenfranchise and suppress voters, but in the past, it was used to like legally. Well, I guess it still is, but it used to be more pronounced, especially in the Jim Crow South. And also, women couldn't vote for most of American history. But the other thing about it is that because we don't have like one election or one election system, you can't say like go vote at 9 a.m. on Tuesday, because some places won't be open at 9 a.m. on Tuesday. So yeah, I think that's part of what it's been interesting just to see. Like, I mean, it's always interesting to see the US election system from the perspective of people who live outside the United States. Because you see like both what's catastrophic about it, and what's still sort of working about it. Um, yeah. Uh, Somebody asked if they could see what's behind me. This is a work of art. I don't know what it is. I think Sarah made it. I think it was in response to an art assignment, but I'm not positive. Those two negative space cutouts were made by our kids, and that is um, a collage slash mosaic that was made by Sarah. What else is behind me? There's some ice cream cones made by Alice. The books, family books, and the Wimbledon Liverpool scarf, and the first little, what do you call it? The marker, the slate, the first slate of the Fault in Our Stars movie, which was given to me by Wick Godfrey and Isaac Klossner, the producers of the movie, which was very kind of them. And there's also a corgi. I don't actually know how that little corgi got in the background. I think somebody put it there. Yeah. So I am going to run off to take care of my children, which it's Raphael the corgi. I know who it is. I just didn't know. I don't really know why it's there. But I like it. It's cute, and also, like, unlike all the other stuffed animals, the kids don't cuddle with it. So that means that I get to keep it, which is nice. So I don't know if I'll be here next week. Hopefully, I will be. It kind of depends on how long next week's video takes to make, and if I'm not, I'll be back a week later to talk about other stuff. One last thing, if you're interested, tomorrow afternoon Eastern time, there's a conversation where I am kind of moderating a conversation with Isata Dumbaya and Dr. Byler Berry from Sierra Leone about Partners in Health Sierra Leone, the Maternal Center of Excellence, and other stuff that's happening. I don't really know how to find a link to that, but I think it'll be a really good conversation, and it's a great opportunity to learn from the head of nursing at the hospital, who's also like the maternal health lead, and Dr. Berry, who founded the Well Body Clinic, which is probably it's the most amazing clinic in Sierra Leone, and a real testament to what can be accomplished there. So, oh, look at that. Allison has already found the link, and it's a bit.ly link and everything. Thank you, Allison. So yeah, I'd love to see y'all there tomorrow. I think it'll be a really interesting conversation. It's an opportunity to learn more directly from the people who are doing the real hard work in Sierra Leone right now, and great people as well, and a chance to like connect and meet PIH, other PIH supporters from outside of our little community. So yeah, I wanted to let you know about that. Thank you again for solving the clues and listening to those Billy Bragg songs. That song about "Never by the Sun" is I just love that song so much. Yeah. So anyway, it's great to talk with you, and thank you for being here. And I'll see you, if not next week, then in 2 weeks. All right. Bye.